At the American Geophysical Union Fall Meeting, the Earth and space science community gathers both in New Orleans and online to network and connect and exchange the latest thinking about our world and beyond. The Fall Meeting program explores a wide range of topics such as climate change, solution science, equity in the research community, and much more. Since 1919, AGU's members have explored the deepest oceans and the furthest planets, and AGU TV is here to cover it all. Welcome back to the fourth day of the AGU Fall Meeting and the fourth episode of AGU TV. The years 2020 and 2021 have really brought to light some of the systemic issues in our society with regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion. In keeping with the meeting theme, Science is Society, today's episode will explore that topic in the Earth and space science community. Nakandra, can you tell us about who we will be talking with today?
Sure thing, Atria. On today's episode, we bring in a few of AGU's advocates for diversity, equity, and inclusion to talk about what they are doing for the community. First up is AGU Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Committee Chair, Lisa White, who discusses a few of the programs she is working on to promote an inclusive geosciences community. Followed by Arizona State University's Vernon Morris on his experience mentoring underrepresented students in the earth and space sciences. And finally, Sierra Green gives us insight into what environmental scientists can learn from traditional Native American knowledge.
Those all sound fascinating, Nakandra. Thank you. And don't forget to stick around for the entire episode as we'll be visiting some more innovative centers, programs, and initiatives that are all working toward new discoveries and solutions in earth and space science.
We are here with Lisa White. Lisa is the Director of Education and Outreach for University of California, Berkeley Museum of Paleontology. She is also the AGU Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Committee Chair and on the board of the National Association of Black Geoscientists. So welcome, Lisa, to AGU TV. Thank you for joining us this morning.
My pleasure. It's wonderful to be here.
Now, you wear a lot of hats, but they all kind of come together in really trying to make sure that the geosciences are all-inclusive.
Right. And I've been active in this effort throughout my career and formed a number of collaborative partnerships with teachers, pre-college students, with other universities to really engage youth in geoscience, primarily through field experiences.
Now tell us about how did you get into geoscience?
Right, everyone has a story, everyone has a journey. And I started out as an art major in college. I loved photography. I wanted to be the black female Ansel Adams. You know, I was gonna be a nature photographer. So I took a geology class to learn more about how landscapes form. And I was just bitten by the geology bug.
So very exciting, sounds like a very interesting career, and you want to make sure that everyone has that opportunity to get into it.
Right, right. In more recent years, I've shifted to more professional development, ways to really redesign frameworks for inclusivity in geoscience and think equally about the culture of the individual participants and what they bring to science.
And you've mentioned that there's some new initiatives that you've been working on in your position here at AGU.
Right, right. So as chair of the Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Committee, it's been a very busy 2.5 years since the committee formed. And so I really enjoy working very closely with AGU leadership to really try to apply some revised kinds of principles and frameworks to make sure that we're really honoring the whole of the society.
Now, are there any specific programs that are coming up?
Well, on my own side of what I do at UC Berkeley and working with a number of other partners, I'm directing a new NSF-funded program called Voices, so Voices of Integrating Culture in Our Science. And we had a terrific all-day workshop at the beginning of the AGU conference. And I've been really inspired this week too by the new AGU program that's the Landing Academy. And so there are more than a dozen professionals that are really intent on reshaping departments and programs with justice and equity in mind.
And I want to kind of latch on to something that you said about fostering a feeling of belonging. And because I will say in my personal experience, as a meteorologist, growing up, I didn't see any women that looked like me that were meteorologists.
Right, and that's still a problem. You know, role models matter. I think we've also learned quite a bit about mentoring and what it means to guide someone towards a profession. And folks can be wonderful allies, you know, even if they're not from the same, you know, ethnic group or the same gender as someone they, you know, might be advising or mentoring. And so that's why I value my role in the National Association of Black Geoscientists and the things that organization does to inspire youth and support the student members with scholarships and do all the kind of mentoring and advising that really can make a difference and having someone stick with the field.
Well, we appreciate the work that you are doing, and we really thank you for joining us here today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, time to head to some of the most remote locations on Earth, and who better to take us there than the Polar Geospatial Center. This science support organization specializes in mapping, cartography, data preservation, high-resolution satellite imagery, and big data solutions to solve geospatial problems at both poles by working with researchers in some of the hardest-to-reach locations on Earth.
Advancing science is PGC's mission. When we realized we had the opportunity to create data sets that could serve the entire community, we leapt at the chance.
Our goal is to help understand what the objectives are of the science groups and logistics teams that we're trying to support, and make sure that we can provide custom products, maps, satellite imagery, so they can achieve their goals and be successful in their research projects.
Educating, training, and inspiring the next generation is a crucial part of PGC's mission.
That's one of the things that I've enjoyed, is just getting to know the students and seeing what they're able to achieve here, and then seeing where they go after they finish up at PGC and the university.
We are excited to partner with the science community and the high-performance computing community to mine this treasure trove of information coming from commercial satellite images over polar regions and across the world.
AGU TV is brought to you from the 2021 AGU Fall Meeting. You can find us in person at the Convention Center in New Orleans, in select hotels, as well as on the homepage of the meeting platform and online. From award winners to research center visits, it's all on AGU TV. What good is all of our data if it's not readily accessible to all? Purdue University's Geospatial Data Framework team is working to tackle that very issue. Earth science researchers often spend an inordinate amount of time wrangling and managing data, often using ad hoc code and scripts on various computers, and the overall reproducibility of the workflow is poor. Let's see how this team is making complex geospatial data readily usable by all.
The Geospatial Data Framework, in this project, we create software modules that we call data connectors, data processors, essentially encapsulating these complex processes that researchers use to access data remotely, to transform data into a format that they can use.
The Geospatial Data Framework is of very big importance for our sensor development. For many of our imaging sensors, we output high-quality images. The images, no matter how beautiful they look, that doesn't make sense to breeders and farmers. They need to see the data, they need to get the results.
It makes our job easier to get the data, process it, and then move that data through processors so we can do simulations and simulate these natural processes that lead to flooding.
Well, welcome back. We are here with Vernon Morris. He is Arizona State University Director of the School of Mathematical and Natural Sciences. And, we're here today because we want to talk about getting more access to atmospheric sciences and just, all the STEM disciplines in particular, more graduate education, more exposure. Tell us a little bit about your work in that.
Well, I've been around a while, so the work started some time ago, I think at Howard University, more formally in geosciences, with the development of the atmospheric sciences graduate program there. It started at a time when I think there were fewer than 10 black PhDs in atmospheric sciences, and we built a program that over its first 10-year period of producing PhDs, produced 60% of all the black PhDs in the United States and 30% of Latina PhDs in the United States. So we're proud of that because not just producing them, but they've gone on to really illustrious careers at NOAA, at NASA, in the federal government. One of our alumni is in the White House as a White House advisor right now. They've started their own companies. So we're very proud not only of increasing representation, but increasing successful leadership in the atmospheric sciences.
And a lot of that has to do with mentorship.
It does. It has to do with mentorship. It has to do with what we call critical mentoring. You bring people into the field with the express purpose of preparing them to be resilient, preparing them to be leaders, arming them really with the knowledge that it is going to be a differential burden once they get into leadership, that they're not traveling as privileged a path as a lot of their colleagues that they'll be competing with for jobs.
Because that can be just such an extra burden on already challenging discipline.
Absolutely. It is challenging. You do have to have an expertise. You do have to be able to market your expertise, and then you've got to be able to demonstrate that expertise once you're given the opportunity. But at the same time that you're focused on that, as everybody in the field is, you have part of your bandwidth dedicated to dealing with prejudice. And that means quite often that you can't give 100% of yourself to your craft. It's one of the things that makes me really proud about the students that we've put out, is that even at that diminished bandwidth, they're still as productive as most people, if not more productive. And what if we didn't have to deal with that? What if the entire field didn't have to deal with sexism or ableism or racism or any of the other isms that we have to deal with?
And we're speaking to the AGU audience, which is full of stakeholders that can help make those changes. What would you say to them?
There are challenges that people need to overcome in terms of internal biases and attachments to historical practices that are racialized, that are gendered, that are highly discriminating to individuals who are not privileged white males, at the expense of general education to all. I think in addition to having individuals recognize sort of the individualized challenges, we've got to change institutional structures, actually. We have to change reward structures. We have to change how the National Academy of Sciences holds people accountable.
And that's been such a theme that we've seen here throughout the conference, and it really falls in line with that theme of science as society. So yeah. I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully there's a lot to take away from that.
Thank you.
Water is life. That is the mantra in Hawaii, where it is the most important natural resource of the state, where they rely exclusively on groundwater resources. The Ikiwai project at the University of Hawaii is focused on answering 3 simple questions. How much water do we have? Where does it flow? And perhaps most importantly, how long will it last? Let's see what their research has uncovered.
Water in Hawaii is our most important natural resource. All of the water that we have in Hawaii is groundwater, so we have no other resources for water other than what falls from the sky. We decided that it was very important to have a very robust hydrology research project here at the University of Hawaii. We focused on hydrology and both mixing of hydrology research with data science research.
The Hawaii Climate Data Portal is also an educational resource. Teachers can access it, students can access it, but really on a fundamental level, what's important is taking this data and translating it to the stakeholder level. A lot of managers in Hawaii, land managers, resource managers, they're faced with these really great challenges of climate change and how to adapt to it, and by providing them locally relevant data and information, they can make the management decisions they need to adapt.
When it comes to large-scale societal issues, the Energy and Minerals Group at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign is at the forefront of researching climate change and the role that geological storage of carbon dioxide might have. The Illinois State Geological Survey is a premier state survey with 150 scientific and support staff that undertake a wide range of projects, from mapping surface geology to deep basin evolution. Let's check it out.
Illinois State Geological Survey is part of the Prairie Research Institute here at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. So we're an applied research group. One of our missions right now is to undertake issues associated with trying to mitigate the emissions of greenhouse gases to the atmosphere.
The Illinois Basin Decatur Project is a first-of-a-kind bioenergy carbon capture and storage project executed in Decatur, Illinois, where we captured 1 million tons of carbon dioxide from ethanol production at Archer Daniels Midland. We compressed, dehydrated that carbon dioxide and sent it via pipeline to a well where we stored it more than 6,800 feet beneath the surface in a sandstone called the Mount Simon Sandstone.
We continue to do our environmental monitoring for the Illinois Industrial CCS project, which continues to inject CO2 into the Mount Simon Reservoir. The purpose of our environmental monitoring is to evaluate subsurface conditions, dynamics, and to ensure that our projects are conducted in a safe manner.
Becoming a scientist is almost at the top of almost every young science student's list, yet few go on to achieve the success that our AGU peers have. So we want to know, why did you want to become a scientist, and do you still feel that inspiration today?
Probably public television, realistically. I think I got into it at a young age because I liked the idea of having stories embedded in quantitative information around me.
So I've always liked the beach, and I got a really cool study area at Cape Canaveral for my PhD dissertation, so that's what I've stuck with.
During my PhD, I had the fortunate to work on some lunar samples returned by the Apollo mission, and I was amazed by how precious they are and how they are different and unique from anything you can find on Earth.
I'm in landslides, and I do landslide assessment and predictions. I'm coming from Kentucky, and we have a lot of landslides in eastern Kentucky that affect thousands of people. So I'm trying to do something that would have an impact.
Hi everybody, we are back with Sierra Green. Sierra is a member of the Nez Perce tribe, and part of their culture is Nimapua culture, which the tradition emphasizes environmental stewardship, and that's part of what drives Sierra's academic, professional, and personal endeavors. So we want to welcome Sierra. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, Tatsmewi. Good morning. Inamunikwas Sapokaswitis, Kasleapatimki, Sierra Green. Thanks for having me today.
We are so excited to have you joining us, and it's very interesting to talk about, throughout the conference we've been talking about how science is society, and really your society drives a lot of your work. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, some of our elders, they always say, we were the first scientists. Our culture is so intricately intertwined with where we are, our actual location, and our homeland stretch between Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, and into Wyoming. When you think about knowledge system that is thousands of years old, it kind of gives you a perspective that, you know, maybe the Nimipu knew what was going on with the environment a little more than what we're still figuring out with Western science. So absolutely, our culture and our homelands are our best teachers because that embedded knowledge is so ancient.
It's really amazing, you know, you've been able to incorporate that tradition of that Native American tradition of conservation along with the modern Western science work.
One of the things that I found really interesting in working with folks in conservation and restoration, you know, I really started to examine those words. To me, I really like to think about it as protection and healing. You know, if we're going to conserve something, in our cultural values, we don't really have a word for conserve, but we do have a word for protect. And what that means, all the implications that come with it. To me, conservation kind of lacks that understanding of inherent responsibility. But when you are the protector of something, you have that responsibility. You carry a little bit more on your shoulders if you're protecting something than if you're just conserving. And same thing with restoring and healing. You know, yeah, we have a lot of restoration work going on across our homelands, but when we really think about it as healing, it really elevates what it is that we're doing.
And how does that connect to the Nimipuanauet project?
Nimipuanauet means lifeways of the Nez Perce. And my colleague and we sat together and we have both done multiple youth camps. And if you've done any sort of youth camp, you know that the chaperones, the counselors who are adults, they say, you kids pay attention. We didn't have this when we were your age, you know, elbowing their way to the front because they want to see, they want to learn. And so we thought, why don't we have camps for adults? Why don't we have programming where families can come? So in all of our events, we have everyone present at the table to learn from one another, and at the forefront is we're all trying to do these things for the protection and healing of our community and our homelands.
And where can members learn more about the project?
We don't have an official website, but if you follow me on LinkedIn, we can continue to post information. And there's so many other great projects going on. We have the Indigenous Speaker Series, which is a monthly webinar series we've been holding that has almost 2,000 followers. Nez Perce Tourism is a great resource, not just for tourism events, but also for cultural understanding. And so that's a company that I work for as well. And then I have my own company, Sapocus Wheatus Consulting, which is exactly how I'm able to run Nimipuanauet with my colleagues, is through my own consulting business.
Thank you, Sierra, so much for joining us. It's been great getting a chance to get to know you today.
And finally, wildfires threaten our lives, health, communities, critical infrastructure, natural resources, and economic well-being, and their effects are increasing with climate change. Let's see how the Los Alamos National Laboratory is studying wildfire smoke so we can more effectively manage it.
So we're living in an era of climate change and experiencing megafires. What happens in megafires is they're burning so intensely that they emit smoke, and the heat lofts the smoke high.
Because there's so much smoke, it produces only small cloud droplets that can't produce rain. So it's a compounding effect. Over the years, we've seen the fires go from 2,000 acres to 50,000 acres to 100, now to 400,000 acres.
Wildland fire affects approximately 70% of the terrestrial ecosystems.
And this is not going to go away. Los Alamos has developed the first physics-based fire models, particularly in complex terrain, to understand how fire spreads and help firefighters.
We know that smoke is a complex mixture of a variety of different chemical compounds, but models can't handle all of that different chemistry. It is too computationally expensive. So working with our observations that we make in the lab and the chemistry that we know is happening, we develop some reduced order parameterizations that can be put into models. And based on some of our initial work, it looks like these parameterizations do a good job of reproducing observations in the data. And this is much better than not including any chemistry at all, which sometimes has been done in the past.
Well, just like that, we have come to the end of the 4th episode of AGU TV. While tomorrow may be the last day of the meeting, we are still digging into an important topic, community science. Nikandra, who will be joining us for our final episode?
Well, on our 5th and final episode of AGU TV, we'll feature a conversation with Lauren Haygood about AGU's Voices for Science cohort, Caitlin Hall on incorporating policy into your work, and Claire Cannon on environmental sociology.
Thanks, Nikandra, and don't forget you can watch AGU TV on the meeting app and platform at any time, as well as in select hotels and online. Thanks again for joining us. We will see you right back here tomorrow for our final episode.